Let's make a spring vegetable quiche. Welcome back to the Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, where we make plant-based cooking easy. I'm Jill, and today we're making this delicious spring vegetable quiche because asparagus is in season. So first thing, we're going to start with our crusts. I already have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. I've got 1.5 cups of almond flour, 1 cup of mashed sweet potato, and this is a white sweet potato, but you could use whatever sweet potato you have. But the white ones tend to be just a little bit more floury and dry, so we might have to use a little more liquid when we're mixing, but we'll get to that. Then I have 1/3 cup of tapioca starch, 1/4 cup of flax meal or ground flax, and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Then I'm going to use my pastry cutter just to kind of mix this together initially, and then I'll mix it together with my hands in the end. Okay, so at this point I've just got it basically mixed together, so I'm going to mix it with my hands now. And this sweet potato was a bit dry, so I'm just going to use a little bit of water, maybe just like a tablespoon or 2 at a time. You don't want to get too much because you don't want it to be a really super sticky kind of batter or pie crust. So just going to see what this does here. You just have to play with it a little bit. There's no exact ingredient, perfect measurement. It's kind of by feel. And if you've ever made a pie crust before, you kind of know the feeling that you're looking for. It's soft, but it doesn't really stick to your hands. But it's also firm enough that it will kind of hold its shape. Because you're still going to want to make that little nice edge around the top of your crust, and if it's too dry, it will just crumble apart. So we're just trying to base it on those or that criteria. Okay, that looks pretty good. Holds together in a ball pretty nicely. I'm going to move these things out. So the next thing you're going to need 2 pieces of parchment paper and a rolling pin. And sometimes when you're working on a countertop like this, that parchment paper just slides around. I'm going to put just a little bit of water. Spread that around a little bit and then stick my parchment to it. So maybe it won't slide around quite so much when I'm trying to roll it out. Put that ball in the center. And I'm going to press it down initially and, kind of keep the edges kind of tight in so they're not all crumbled apart. And then I'll do the parchment paper and rolling pin. And you just kind of work from the center out, just like you would do with a normal pastry crust, so that you can kind of keep it in a circular shape. And then you're going to need a 9-inch pie plate, just like this. It doesn't have to be a clear pie plate. You can have it be a ceramic one too, that's fine. And you just keep rolling it out until it's basically just a little bit bigger than your pie plate, so that it'll come up around the edges and you can create that nice pie crust edge. Looks like we're just about there. Okay, and this part doesn't have to be exact either, because when you're forming the crust around the outside, you're kind of going to be forming it with your hands, and it sticks together to itself really well. So that first initial roll doesn't have to be perfect. And move my pie plate over and then just kind of flip it over. And you just kind of let it sink down into your pan or into your pie plate. Okay. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. And like this side's a little bit low, this side's a little bit too much, so you just kind of take some from one side, put it in the spots that are a little bit like they don't have quite enough batter there. And then you start to shape your edge. So I'm going to work on mine and I'll show you my finished result. You can make it as pretty or as rustic as you want. Okay, there we go. Mine is done. Kind of in between pretty and rustic. All right, so our oven is on 350 degrees and we're gonna stick that in there for about 10 minutes just so we can kind of seal the surface of that so the quiche filling doesn't soak into the bottom of that pan. While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of free printable recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook series, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting membership community. So if you love our recipes, I invite you to join us on our mission to make plant-based cooking easy, and follow the link in the description to become a supporting member today. There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking? The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order. Okay, now we're gonna make the custardy filling part that we're gonna add our vegetables to. That's gonna hold it all together. So I've got 1 container of firm silk tofu. It's about 14 ounces. 1/3 cup of nutritional yeast. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. 1 tablespoon of low sodium tamari. 1 tablespoon of a grainy mustard. Or you could use Dijon, that works good too. And then 1/2 cup of water. And we're just gonna blend this up until it's really smooth and there's no chunks of tofu left. Okay, super simple, right? All right, I'm gonna grab my veggies and my crust and then we'll assemble it. Okay, so now on to our vegetables. So I've got a whole bunch of asparagus here. It came out to about 4 cups when I chopped it up. And then I just lightly cooked it a little bit, just in some boiling water for probably less than 5 minutes, just to soften it a little bit. Because if you put it in there raw, it still ends up being a little too crunchy for my preference. If you like it really crunchy, by all means leave it raw. So I'm gonna put that in there first. Then I have a cup of spring onions that I've diced up pretty small. And that was just 1 bunch of spring onions too. A cup of cherry tomatoes that I've quartered. Then I have a teaspoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a teaspoon of dill weed. And then we're gonna do a generous amount of cracked pepper. And if you want the written ingredients, there'll be a link to a printable version of the recipe in the details below. All right, now we're gonna pour this delicious custardy filling over the top. And I left my oven on 350 degrees because that's what we're gonna bake it at. And now you're just folding these in, folding all the vegetables in. And you're just gonna mix it until it's really well incorporated and all the vegetables are covered. There we go. I'm gonna bring over our baked pie crust, our par-baked pie crust. Just pour it in. This is one of those dishes that's so nice. You can make it a day ahead and you can have it for like a weekend brunch or something, or a breakfast. Or you can have it for dinner. We like to eat it for dinner because it's very, very filling. But it does well to be made a day ahead and to put it in the refrigerator, and then you can reheat it when you're ready to eat. So now you just smooth down the top. Make sure it gets all the way out to the edge of the pie crust. And there we go. We are going to stick it into the oven for 55 minutes. Okay, everybody, it is done. If you want to come in and take a closer look. Oh, it smells so amazing. So I'm going to let this cool for a bit and then I'll meet you at the table for a taste. Okay, time to dig in. Let's cut a little piece here. Okay, but it's always that challenging time. Trying to get the first piece of a pie out of a pie plate is always a challenge without just wrecking it. So let's see if I can do it. Ooh, let's see. There we go. Oh my goodness. Still pretty warm, so it's not completely set up yet. So this, well, here we go. It's very nice and smooth. But as it sits, it will set up, and if you put it in the refrigerator, it'll set up even more firm, so you can take it out, slice it really nicely the next day. But more importantly, it's all about the taste, right? So creamy. And that asparagus is perfect. You are gonna love it. Come on back next week for another great recipe.